Oh, hello. Hi, this is Rachel Payne. I'm coordinator of early childhood services at Brooklyn Public Library, and I'm delighted that to be offering this webinar with you. And I'm here with my colleagues. We'll go ahead and introduce them. Eva Raison is our director of outreach services here at Brooklyn Public Library, and Jessica Rowley is coordinator of early literacy programs. And the title, as Kelsey mentioned, is Beyond Bilingual, Making Storytime Friendly to Families who are English language learners. So just a few little housekeeping things. We want to know that everything that we're going to be talking about, a copy of this PowerPoint, some of the resources that we're mentioning are all on a web page, and the URL is here. So if you want to take a copy of that, you're more than welcome to pull that up right now. That URL is case sensitive, so don't capitalize things. And you can feel free to take that, and that will be up for a while. So feel free to access that whenever you need some of the resources listed there. And now I will turn it over to Eva, who is going to give us an overview of what we're going to be talking about today.
Good afternoon. My name's Eva. I work in outreach services at the library. I'm just going to give you a rundown of some of the things that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about our experiences in making our programs more ELL friendly, our children's programs, and also creating multilingual and bilingual programming, but also going beyond a lot of the typical Spanish-English bilingual programming. So we're going to spend a little time framing the issue, and we're going to talk about the benefits of bilingualism and other things that we know about language and early literacy. We'll tell you about what we did, give you some tips from our own multilingual story times, and also other things that you can do to make your programs more accessible for English language learners. We'll have some time to discuss, and we may ask you to sing if you're sitting in a place where other people can't hear you. So before we get started, we wanted you to think a little bit, put yourself in the shoes of an English language learner or someone who's limited English proficient. So just take a minute or two to think about when you hear or read your native language, if your first language is not English, how does it feel when you hear or read your native language in New York? Also, if your first language is English, when you are somewhere where the primary language is not English, how do you feel when you don't speak the language? So just take a minute to think about that if you want to even just jot down a couple of words of how that makes you feel. So in Brooklyn, we are a very diverse place. Almost half of the residents in Brooklyn speak a language other than English at home, and 1 in 4 Brooklynites is limited English proficient and speaks English less than well. So that shows up in all kinds of ways in our library. For example, in our children's program, one of our core programs, Ready, Set, Kindergarten, that Jessica, who you'll hear from in a minute, oversees, 33 languages are spoken by the participants in that program. And this is not unique only to New York City. Throughout New York State, we have an increasingly hyper-diverse population, and many of our neighbors speak other languages. One of the things that's happened over time is when we think of bilingual programming, we often think of the most spoken languages. So in the United States, in New York, and in New York City, the most spoken second language is Spanish. The map on the left here shows you the languages that are most frequently spoken. Light blue is English, and dark blue is Spanish. You'll see there's a little bit less diversity. The light green is Yiddish. On the right-hand side, there's a map that shows the languages spoken and most frequently spoken in New York City if you exclude English and Spanish. And you'll see that there are many, many languages spoken beyond Spanish. And that is what we wanted to accomplish wanted to address when we started working on this multilingual storytime program, is just to know that we have neighbors that speak many, many languages, and we wanted to create something for them as well. I'm going to switch it over to Rachel now to talk to you a little bit more about what we did.
All right, I think I'm unmuted now, and I don't think they're yet getting my screen. So you're still the presenter, Eva. Okay, here we go. Show my screen. Okay. Oh, no, wait. All right, sorry. Getting the technology right is fun. Again, I'm Rachel Payne, coordinator of early childhood services here at Brooklyn Public Library. I am going to talk a little bit about just the foundation of what we do and why we do it around early literacy. So I hope a lot of you are familiar with Every Child Ready to Read, the second edition, and the 5 practices that are discussed there. Just to review, if you guys are not, or if you're not familiar with them, those 5 practices are reading, talking, singing, writing, and playing. And if you're familiar with that curriculum, you'll probably remember that one of the key points that we drive home when we do those workshops for parents is how important it is for parents to do these early literacy practices in their home language, in the language that they know best, that they're most comfortable with. And the reason for this, if you're not steeped in a lot of this stuff, is that we know that according to research, that parents who read, talk, sing, write, and play in the language they know best really give their children a strong foundation. And they use more literacy-rich language with their children. So this means kids that are spoken with in a literacy-rich environment and have this rich language background are more comfortable when they get to school, and they can translate those skills into learning English, into learning a second language. So it really helps build a strong foundation. So if you think about it, if parents are using rich vocabulary, more diversity of words in their native language, rather than in English, which they may not be as comfortable with, they're really building a strong foundation for their children. But there actually is kind of a tension here. As you know, as you may know, many parents come to library programs because they want their kids to be exposed to English. They really want their kids to learn English and to start school ready to go. And so there's a little bit of anxiety there between what early literacy advocates say, do all these things in the language you know best, and then the parents really want to have their kids exposed to English. So that's been a sort of thing that we really have tried to consider when we are developing programs for for English learning families. So that's something just to be cognizant about when you are developing your programs. Well, I'm going to give you a little overview of what we were able to do at Brooklyn Public Library. Last year, the year before this one, in 2017, we were actually able, 2016, 2017, we got a grant from the Altman Foundation, and we've also gotten additional funding from the New York City Council to create story times in other languages. So we've been able to offer story times in over 10 languages and about over 300 story times a year. To make this happen, since we didn't have children's librarians that spoke Creole or Yiddish or some of the other languages, Urdu and things like that, or Arabic, we're able to hire native speakers, often members of the communities where they were offering the programs, with experience with working with children to lead the Storytime programs. We gave them training and support, introduced them to the key message of Every Child Ready to read, talk, sing, write, and play in the language that they're most comfortable with. And and this is how we were able to offer these programs. And these were people that we paid as contractors, almost as performers on a fee-for-service basis. And these programs are predominantly family story times. Often we would get parents bringing their more than one child, maybe a baby along with a 3-year-old or a 2-year-old to the programs. So, and sometimes there was a bit of a challenge, particularly with Creole. There's not a lot of books published in those languages. So sometimes the storytime leaders would have to take some English books and do a little bit of translation. So it was really great to have people that were steeped, that were culturally competent in the areas working with the community that they were serving. And we definitely emphasized those key early literacy practices. But, in order to speak to that tension that I mentioned before, we really tried to encourage to try to think of ways that we could also support parents that wanted to improve their English language learning skills. So whenever possible, we would definitely try to point parents to bilingual materials to check out, picture books that were in bilingual. We tried to schedule story times adjacent to English language discussion groups. So parents could both bring their children to Bengali story time, for example, and then go to an English language discussion group right after. So they get the best of both worlds. And they also tried to connect parents to ELL programs to support that we offer at the library, to support their own literacy development. As well as expanding the languages that we offer Storytime, we've also been trying to make our English Storytimes more accessible to families that are English language learners. We've been able to offer some staff training to make the Storytimes English language learner friendly. We had some training through Bilingual Birdies, which is a group that offers a lot of fun story times in other languages and music programs in other languages in our branches, and they were able to offer some training for our staff. And we also developed some materials and tools and aids to make story time more accessible to English language learners. I'm going to go to the next slide to show you what those are. So these materials, a lot of them are on the web page that I showed earlier. Excuse me, that talk so the image of the resource that we created on the left are our Storytime cards. We took a page out of the playbook from our Inclusive Services Department, and they helped us develop some visual schedules to use in our Storytime. A lot of programs that support kids on the autism spectrum or other kids with just disabilities often use visual schedules so children know what's happening next. And this is really helpful for parents that are English language learners. They know, oh, we're reading a story now. Oh, we're doing a finger play. There's an image to go along with each of the cards, so they know what's happening. So this is both helpful to the children that are participating in the program and to the parents, so they know what's happening next. And the image in the middle, I'll have another picture of it on the next slide, is that we created very large format song and rhyme books. We have a very talented marketing team here at the library, and they created a large format song book that we could have in the program so parents could see what the English songs and rhyme lyrics were and join in. One of our children's librarians came up with the great idea of just having parents snap a picture of any of those songs and rhymes that they want to practice at home, so they can carry that with them virtually as well. And so I'll show you the image of that in a second. And then we also created Storytime guides. These guides have a simple overview of what happens in Storytime on one side, and then some tips and suggestions of how to engage in the 5 Every Child Ready to Read practices on the opposite page, on the opposite side. We translated these guides into 10 languages, and you can see samples of some of these on the web page that I mentioned earlier with all of these materials. So if you'd like to check that out, please do. And we tried to keep the language on these Storytime guides simple. So, being cognizant that people are at different levels with their literacy ability. So we wanted to make it simple English and simple words in their home language so it was easy to access. So here is a couple of images of these tools in action at our Canarsie Library. This is Cassie Hickman and Teresa Allert modeling them for us, so thank you. And on the left, you'll see the Storytime large format song and rhyme book. and that's a lot of fun. You can see 5 green and speckled frogs if you squint very hard. So, so the kids can join in, and this is great for the kids starting to develop some of the environmental print awareness, as well as just being the words for the parents to take pictures of or to join in on. And then the Storytime cards are on the other side. And we use pocket charts to display those. If you're not familiar what a pocket chart is, they're used in a lot of elementary and early childhood classrooms. If you want to get some, you can go to any of those vendors that sell to teachers, and you can find those materials there. And they have clear plastic pockets that where you can display the different materials. So just a couple of words about how we build an audience for the program and some things that we've thought about as we've expanded and marketed the program. Something that we've been surprised about is who comes to the program. We were really expecting it to be a lot of the native speakers coming to the program. But we've also found that parents really want to expose their children, and they may be solely English speaking at home, to a second language. So particularly for our Spanish, Chinese, and French programs, often we have parents who are not native speakers of those programs bringing children to them because they just want their kids to be exposed to a new language. And so that's been kind of a surprise. So, but it's been really nice to have, families that are, from different backgrounds interact and engage in the program together. Something that we found in some communities is building an audience can be difficult, but promotion is really the key. We've actually relied a lot on the help of our Storytime leaders to help spread the word about these programs in communities. Many of them are very much connected with the communities where they're working. They have contacts on social media. They know some of the organizations that serve families that may speak the language or from the culture or background that they are. So we've really relied on them to help us spread the word as well. We also have lots of partners throughout the borough who serve immigrant neighborhoods, who serve families in different capacities, and they've been really helpful to help us get the word out about the programs. And sometimes we've not, as much as telling people about when and where the program is, sometimes we've really had to explain why we're offering the program. One story that I heard is a parent wondered why she should be bringing her 2-year-old to Bengali Storytime. She really felt like her child wasn't really ready to hear stories read aloud, and she was just playing, so it wouldn't be beneficial to her. So our wonderful Bengali Storytime leader, Najman, really went out of her way to explain to the mother that, how this program can really benefit her and her child. So sometimes we've had to do a little bit of explaining why about the program as much as when and where it's going to be. And I am actually going to turn it over to Jessica now. Oh, there's one more slide. Oh, I forgot that one more slide. See, I thought I was all done. Okay, so here's a few anecdotes and numbers of things that, since we had a grant, we did some surveys of the families, and we asked them to self-report on how they were engaging in the program. 80% were pleased to say of the participants reported that they read, sing, and play more at home since coming to Storytime. So that was a very favorable outcome, and I think that outcome really allowed us to leverage additional funding from our city council to expand the program after we got funding from private foundation. And there's a couple of nice quotes from parents who are bringing their children to both Urdu Storytime and Arabic. And I think really, allowing the children, I think it's just so great to see the kids participating in the programs and the parents really feeling like their kids are getting a lot out of it. It's just been very heartwarming to see. And then on the right side of the screen, you see the Instagram page of our wonderful Urdu Storytime leader, Shamsa. You're going to see a video of her later. But she created a wonderful Instagram page of all the different things that she does in her Urdu Storytime. And this has been quite popular in her native Pakistan as well. Some of the educators that work there are actually accessing her Instagram page, and she's become very popular in Pakistan as well as here in the US. So that was kind of an unexpected outcome that happened through the program. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jessica, and we have to do a little headset switch, but I will try to make this as seamless as possible. Oh, wait, no, I can just, we just do this. Okay.
everybody, this is Jessica Rowley, and we're going to talk a little bit now about what you can do. So as Rachel was talking about, I sort of broke it into these three buckets to make it clear. We're talking about three different things. So Rachel was talking a lot about what we did with our bilingual story times, and those are with native speakers who are fluent in that language. So that is really great if you have the resources to do that, if you have the staff to do that, if you have some grant money to hire and train people to do that. It's not really recommended for you to do that unless you have fluency in that language. You really, if you're going to have a bilingual story time, you want to be able to have, you know, like a reference conversation. You know, you want to be able to answer questions. So I want to talk about things that you can do if you don't have fluency in, you know, 10 languages, which I certainly don't. So we're going to focus on how you can add different languages to your story time, and then ways you can make your English story time friendly to English language learners. So adding, you know, multilingual content to your story time is a way to engage families who speak different languages. And it's also a way to expose others in your community to new languages and cultures, which Rachel talked about. We see that a lot as a strong desire in the families that we serve. So I want to reiterate that everything I'm about to show you, because I'm going to show you songs and books and things like that, it's all in the website, and it's case sensitive, so I think you saw it on the first page, but it's also at the bottom of the screen. So singing. This may seem like an intimidating way to bring other languages into your program, into your story time. Some people are intimidated just to sing at all, but we're going to break it down in a way that's manageable and that's fun. So one easy way is to learn a hello or a goodbye song in another language. Or you can just replace the words hello and goodbye in another language. You can ask your families at your programs for help with this, and we're going to practice one of these as our last slide as we say goodbye to each other. But it's a really great idea that you can apply to any familiar song. So we're going to look at an example, so just bear with me as I bring up a little video. This is a video of Shamsa, who is, as Rachel said, our wonderful Urdu Storytime leader, and she is going to sing The Wheels on the Bus, but she just replaced the action words with Urdu words.
Okay, everybody, now we're going to sing The Wheels on the Bus song. I'm sure all of you know it, but we're going to do a little twist. We're going to change the action words with Urdu words. All right, here we go.
And I'm going to sing along.
The
bus go, gol, 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 gol. The wheels on the bus go, gol, 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 all through the town. The
doors on
the bus go, kuli or band, kuli or band, kuli or band. The doors on the bus go, kuli or band, all through the town.
The vipers
On the bus go either or ooder, either or ooder, either or ooder. The wipers on the bus go either or ooder, all through the town. The babies on the bus go where, where. It's the same. Where, where. The babies on the bus go where, where. All through the town.
The mommies on the bus go
Chupi-caro, chupi-caro, chupi-caro. The mommies on the bus go chupi-caro, all through the town.
The
Driver on the bus says pichi-jackie baito, pichi-jackie baito, pichi-jackie baito. The driver on the bus says pichi-jackie baito, all through the town. Thank you, Shamsa. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. You can try that with lots of simple songs. Another idea is you can always, you know, if that's a little bit intimidating for you, you can always just show or play a video or a song in another language. And we have some great resources again on the website for some library systems who have put out, who have created amazing songs and finger plays that are perfect for story time for young children in multiple languages. So those links are on the website. And we have a lot of our story time leaders who speak other languages choose to do that just because they're more comfortable singing along with somebody else singing rather than doing it themselves. And it's a great way to learn some new songs and rhymes in other languages. Another thing you can do is you can ask parents and caregivers to share songs and rhymes in their language, and you can even build a program around this. This is something you can, do very casually, or Miriam Lang-Budin from Chappaqua Library does this in her Multilingual Mother Goose Storytime. And so if you want to learn more about that, there's a great video that she produced on her website where she demos the whole program, and she demos how she's collected over time. I think it's about 18 years she's been collecting songs and rhymes, lots of different languages. She's put them into a book, and then all the participants in that program get the book every time, and so they really start to learn the whole catalog of songs and rhymes in other languages. And then if you're feeling really adventurous, you can learn a song or a finger play in an entirely different language, and then teach it to the children and the caregivers in your program. So we're going to teach you again through a video, a very simple finger play that is in Japanese. So this is going to be Mayumi, who's doing a finger play called Chochi Chochi Awawa. Chochi Chochi Awawa. Kaiguri kaiguri toto no me, otsumi tenten, hiji tonton. Chochi chochi awawa, kaiguri kaiguri toto no me, otsumi tenten, hara pom pom. Thank you. So that one actually was very popular with my she was about a year at the time when I learned that song, my daughter, and she started, some of the first songs that she sang had that chochi chochi in it. She just really loved those sounds. So even babies, can kind of tell that it's something different and it's something interesting and exciting. So now we're going to go on to books, and I have a few suggestions here, but again, we have some longer, more detailed book lists on the website for you. So reading a monolingual book in another language is a really big challenge, and it's not recommended unless you're truly bilingual. If you've tried it, you probably understand why. But there are some really easy ways to just infuse other languages into the books you're reading. So one of the ways I like to do this is with a near wordless book. So an example of a near wordless book would be something like Wait by Antoinette Portis. This is a great book for doing something like this because this book only has about 2 words in it. It has the word wait and the word hurry. So you can pretty easily translate those 2 words into any language. And another thing I've experimented with is actually trying to read this book in multiple languages. So on every page, I use a Post-it note that, on one page it's wait and hurry in Chinese, and another page it's wait and hurry in Spanish, etc. So just, make sure you check those translations with a native speaker, just because Google Translate is not always correct. Another thing you can do is read a bilingual book. So there are a lot of great ones out there. Some are easier than others. And Say Hello by Rachel Isadora is an example of a pretty easy one. It's just the word hello in a lot of different languages. Another one I like, but it's a little more challenging, is Green as a Chile Pepper by Roseanne Thong. So a book like that with more content, just know that you'll need to practice a couple of times, and you should have a good understanding of pronunciation. But you can also think about books that you can very easily translate. For example, books about colors, counting, and of course an ABC book. And you can also encourage your families to sing the ABC song in their language at your program. So now we're going to move on to talking and playing. So we've had a few images of these blocks. We absolutely love these. These are Uncle Goose blocks that come, I think, now in about 10 different languages. And these are fun to use just for playtime, for displays. We've done printmaking in Play-Doh and Model Magic. You can spell out some key words from a story or a song you're going to sing and have them up at the front with you. They're just really nice, and kids get very excited when they see, and parents get really excited when they see their language in the blocks, and they're always going to ask, where do I get these blocks? So these are Uncle Goose. So you can also try counting in other languages in your playtime using manipulatives, using blocks. And again, this is something you can get your families to help you do. Food, there are wonderful multicultural food sets out there. I think Lakeshore has some great ones, and Discount School Supply. And one of our librarians had the idea of making a food truck out of a cardboard box, and then every week she would change the signage to match the different food. So I thought that was a really fun idea. And then music, having music playing, CDs, and Raffi and Putumayo are some great they have some great world music CDs. And then of course, multicultural musical instruments are a really easy and joyful way to explore different cultures and languages. So now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about how to make your English language story time more friendly to English language learners. So this really means finding ways they can understand the songs, the stories you're sharing, and then how to continue that learning at home. So all of that great rich information you're sharing in your English language story times, whether it's the 5 practices or other early literacy tips you have, how do you make this accessible? So one thing I love to do, again, back to the wordless books, is to model how to read them. This is incredibly powerful because it shows parents that you can read a picture book in any language. They may feel really intimidated picking up a book in English that has tons of words, and they think that they need to translate it. So they might choose a way simpler book that their child might not be interested in. So just modeling that they can pick up any book with pictures. It can be wordless, it can have words, but they can read it by taking a picture walk and having a conversation with their children around the pictures. Using props like puppets and flannel boards. So these kinds of visuals really help engage kids and families in the story, even if they don't understand the words. So it's giving them a different entry point for understanding what you're showing. And then singing a book. So this could be done either with an illustrated songbook, like Jane Cabrera has many illustrated songbooks that are great with classic songs. But you can also sing just about any simple book. You can set a simple book to any tune that you know. Byron Barton books work really, really well to that. You can set them to the ABC tune or other simple tunes like Frere Jacques, and it works really well. And so we know that singing slows down language. There's lots of repeated words in songs. So just like this is helpful for any child who's learning language, it's also very helpful to make language accessible to English language learners. Use expression. Some of us are more comfortable with that than others, but I think it's really important to use expression. And you can choose books that really focus on expression, like the book Moo by David La Rochelle. There's just one word in it, moo. So you have to use expression on every page if you're going to get the story across. Another example of a book like that is Aha by Jeff Mack, where the only words in the book are ah and ha, but it's said in different ways, and really anyone can understand it if it's expressed a certain way. And another thing we talked about earlier is using visual schedules, as Rachel showed, and song and rhyme lyrics. These are just some supports that make sure that the information is being communicated in different ways. So as you're sitting down to plan your programs with all of these new ideas, it's just really important to think about these 3 things. I wanted to kind of break down this concept of universal design, which is something that we talk about a lot when we're designing programs and curriculum for children with disabilities. So we can really borrow that idea and try to make our story time more accessible, just as we do for children with disabilities, for families who are English language learners. So the 3 things, you want to show things in different ways. So an example for this would be, telling a story with both a book and some props and visuals. You want to allow people to show what they know in different ways. So for example, this would be inviting families to share songs, stories, words, the ABC song in their language. And then you want to give them different ways to participate, so, right? So not just listening. You want to engage them visually, through movement, through song, through play. And play I like the most because it's very universal. So I'm going to pass this back to Eva. Oh.
So with universal design, one concept that also works really well is plain language. And plain language was a movement that was primarily started in the legal community and also with government documents to make sure that the language that is used in essential documents that are required for accessing resources, or like public benefits or filing your taxes, are accessible to everyone, regardless of their education level or language. So there actually are language access laws and plain language laws that are in place that require certain agencies to provide instructions and accessible language in all essential documents. In terms of making language more accessible, one thing is to be aware of the amount of language that you're putting into any sentence. I think especially with librarians and those of us who love words, that it's easy to make sentences a little bit less declarative and to embellish, but I think it's important, even if you are going to use more complex language, to at least restate language in simpler terms as well. One rule of thumb or thing that I use a lot, I'm going through this, is that I will use the word count check in Microsoft Word, and within that tool, there's also a way to check the grade level of the language that you are using. I try to keep main documents that are for the public below the 6th grade reading level. Within language access, there are a couple of other key components. Multilingual Storytime and ELL-friendly Storytime are a great example of language access and making library services more available to everyone. So that comes down to plain language and accessible language, and also translating key documents, everything from a library card, which in our system is available in 12 languages, but also promoting access beyond just opening the door, but inviting people in as well. The Storytime guides that we talked about have been translated to many languages and are available at all times to families so that they have a little bit of a clearer sense of how to participate. We also believe it's really important to use community experts and to ask the community what it is that they are interested in. I think it's very possible in many types of programs to see limited English proficiency as a deficiency, and we try to make sure that we look at the other languages spoken by our neighbors as an asset and as something that enriches our communities. In terms of working with community experts, in our case, that can mean facilitators, but it can also mean some of our bilingual staff and librarians. We have a language access team that can proof professionally translated materials to make sure that they're using the correct language for our context, but also can translate things originally. We also have started a volunteer position for family members or community members who want to assist in bringing their home language and bringing content in language and literacy into our children's programs. So I hope you got a good sense of what we've been building here in Brooklyn. I wanted to share a couple of our next steps of where we're seeing ourselves going next. One of the things we're working on right now is expanding cultural competency training for staff, making sure that our spaces are truly welcoming, particularly in a climate that is xenophobic at times. We have signs that are up that say everyone is welcome here, but we're also looking at ways to make sure our communication is culturally appropriate and responsive to communities. We're also starting to create a roster of multilingual performers alongside the multilingual Storytimes and the ELL friendly Storytimes. We have developed world language family programs, which are primarily performers who practice folk traditions here in Brooklyn and share them through family programming, which is also a space through which we can promote some of our multilingual Storytimes. We have also expanded Rosetta Stone. We're trying that out in one of our branches, and we're hoping to make that available to staff this year. As we wrap up, and to make sure we still have time for questions and answers, I told you we would make you sing. So if you're in a space where there aren't other people, please join us in song.
All right, so I'm hoping you guys can hear me. I think you can. So yeah, there are lots of ways to do the goodbye song in other languages. Just translating the word goodbye is probably one of the easiest ways. So this is one example of how you can do this. And Eva mentioned community experts. So if I was in a room of our community, I would ask if anybody spoke Mandarin or any of these languages and just kind of check my pronunciation, but we don't have our community experts in the room with us. So I'm going to ask my colleagues to sing along with me. And again, if you're in a place where you can sing, this is sung to the tune of Skip to My Lou. So that's Lou, Lou, skip to my Lou, 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 skip to my Lou, just as a refresher. So we're going to do it together on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Clap everybody and say 再见. Clap everybody and say 再见. Clap everybody and say 再见. No matter what the weather. Clap everybody. We'll do one more. We're doing okay on time. You want to do au revoir? Let's do au revoir. Okay. Clap everybody and say au revoir. Clap everybody and say au revoir. Clap everybody and say au revoir, no matter what the weather. All right. Thank you so much. I think we're going to open it up to questions. Also, these are our email addresses if you want to get in touch, and check out the website too.
Great, thank all of you. We'll give everyone a couple of more minutes just to get in their last minute questions. I had a quick question while we're waiting. Could you talk more about libraries that may not have access to people of different that know different languages? What are some things you would recommend to do to be more culturally inclusive?
I can answer the first part of that. That's part of what I was referring to when I was talking about looking at the knowledge and assets of your own community. I think in most cases, if there is a community that's limited English proficient that you're trying to serve, you do have resources. For example, our Welcome Ambassador program, which engages volunteers who may have some basic English skills, but also remember all of their lullabies and stories from when they were children and are able to share those in a story time. I would say primarily engaging community members and community leaders or community-based organizations and working with the parents themselves who come to story time.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on that. There are definitely, we have multilingual story times that we coordinate through some grant funding, But we also have a lot of multilingual story times that happen through volunteers. So, they let us know about it, but it's something that's coordinated usually at the branch level, and it happens exactly in the way that Eva just described. So, just last week I learned that we have an additional Urdu story time happening at one of our branches. That is not one that we coordinate, but it's one that the branch found a community member who just really wanted to do it and wanted to offer it and knew that it was something that we were doing, so she felt welcome and she felt like there was a window of opportunity for her to do it.
Great. And our next question is, where can you buy the alphabet blocks?
So you can buy the alphabet blocks at unclegoose.com, I'm pretty sure it is. That's where we get them. So they may be available. Yeah, if you Google Uncle Goose wooden blocks. They're in a lot of different places. But the website directly from Uncle Goose, they probably have the biggest. They have as many languages as they offer. They have on their website, so that's probably the best place. Too. They have Braille as well.
Great. And if we don't have any other questions, we can conclude today's presentation. I would like to thank our presenters again and the NYLA's Youth Services section for coordinating today's presentation.
Great, thanks for having us.
Thank you.